Hey, we've got the chairs settled. It's great to be here. I want to introduce you to my new best friends who I had lunch with today. I guess we'll start with Ram. Ram, you're at OpenLedger. Can you tell everybody who might not know what OpenLedger is and what you do there and everything?
Sure. Hey guys, so this is Ram. I'm one of the co-contributors of OpenLedger. Me personally, I've been in the space for quite some time, from 2017, building more on blockchain R&D. Worked with firms like Flipkart, which is Walmart's India subsidiary, Viacom, Cadbury's. We've worked with a lot of enterprises like Polygon and so on and so. OpenLedger is a recent project that I'm part of. The sovereign data blockchain, what we work on is basically collect unique data sets that you don't find on the internet, and we build small language models on top of that. So any AI apps that are looking for like unique data sets and need models to inference on, they could use our platform. So that's what is OpenLedger. We are funded by Polychain Capital. We just came out of stealth and going testnet soon. Glad to be here.
Great, thanks, Ram. And by the way, Ram has a hard stop at 45, so if we jump up and leave at 45,
thank you for that,
don't
Josh.
take it personally. Islam, why don't you tell us about Dfinity? I think probably most people in the room generally know what it is, but why don't you just give us a very quick crash course?
Yes, absolutely, Josh. So hi everyone, my name is Islam. I'm the AI lead of the Dfinity Foundation. The Dfinity Foundation is the developer of a protocol called the Internet Computer Protocol. You can think of the Internet Computer Protocol as a piece of software that we have developed, and independent data centers around the world, they take the software and they run it on their own hardware, their own physical machines. And then these machines, they talk to each other to form a decentralized network called the Internet Computer. And the Internet Computer, you can think of it like a decentralized cloud, not too dissimilar from AWS or Microsoft Azure. So you can build any end-to-end service that you can imagine, ranging from a simple website to a DEX to an AI service, and run it end-to-end on the Internet Computer, a decentralized infrastructure. And we have recently been focusing on AI, running AI models directly on the Internet Computer, on-chain. And we see this as a way to solve part of the AI trust problem that some of the panelists were referring to. I can talk more about that later. We
will be talking more about that
yes,
later.
We do have a booth in the back, so feel free to stop by and we can talk more after the panel.
Great, thank you. And Lee, you are here in your capacity as a partner of Sefolio?
Yes, that's correct.
And what is Sefolio?
I'm actually a couple different roles that I'm wearing.
Two hats.
Two hats. So Sefolio Ventures is the investing, off the balance sheet investing arm of Bitmart. I'm also the chief strategy officer at Bitmart. We are a centralized exchange. We serve globally, so we have customers from 180 countries. We have 900 tokens listed and traded, including different trading pairs, and we have derivatives in certain countries and geographic locations. Legal probably required me to say that we're not opening our derivative in the US anytime soon, so.
Well, that is a relief. All right, great, thank you. And I'm Josh Quittner, I'm the CEO of Decrypt. I started Decrypt, it's a news and information website about, initially it was about crypto. Now we're getting at least as much traffic on our AI stories, our stories about AI, which I think is sort of fascinating given the number of people in this room who also live at that intersection. I think I would like to start by noting the name of this as Will Blockchain Drive the Breakthrough of AI? Now, I'm sure to a lot of people outside of this room, AI has already had a breakthrough. It doesn't need anything, right? So what do you think that blockchain is going to do? What's the benefit that blockchain will bring to artificial intelligence? Or maybe phrased another way, if crypto and blockchain completely went away, would it make any difference to AI? Maybe Islam, because I think you two are going to bring, one's going to bring a kind of private sector perspective and the other is going to bring more of an open source perspective. So why don't you start with the open source perspective, Islam?
Yes, absolutely. So I do think crypto has a huge role to play here. I totally agree that AI by itself is already a massive breakthrough as it is. But if you look at, let's say, the 90s and some of the services that popped up then, like search engines and social media in the early 2000s, the way that it has evolved, it has essentially been monopolized by a handful of companies. And AI can potentially move into that direction where it's also going to be monopolized by a very small number of companies. And this is where I see crypto as potentially a solution to try to combat that. And I think there are different ways to combat that. So for example, you have Axel Flops, when they presented their work, they're trying to democratize the way that GPUs are accessed. And on the internet computer, where we think we can play a role, is addressing the platform risk. So I think as AI develops, you're going to see that more and more people are going to have their own AI assistants. Organizations would want to have their own AI assistants. And these AI assistants are going to have access pretty much to all your data, calendars, contacts, Slack messages, and so forth. And where would you want to run this? I think that's going to be a key question. And who has access to this data is going to be a key question. And on the internet computer, because it's an open source, decentralized protocol, you can actually have, when you build a service on the internet computer, you can provide verifiable guarantees around how a service behaves. So you can have, let's say, a transcription service running on the internet computer, and you can prove cryptographically that this service, once it transcribes your meeting, it is no longer going to be storing this audio anywhere. And so this is how you can really build services that can build trust with its users, especially that now, compared to the early 2000s, people are much more aware of privacy and the implications of just giving companies their data left and right.
Okay. Ram, what do you think?
Yeah, I can add to that. So we always see that blockchain as a technology which enables verifiability and openness in any other tech that is being built. And I also strongly believe that you don't have to decentralize everything, right? We should decentralize things that's required. And if you take a look at in the AI space, right, AI has been used in very specific sectors a couple of years back, like autonomous driving and stuff like that. But now it's going to be much more general purpose. So what it means is that it's going to be part of every other work that we do. It's either your professional work or stuff you do at home, or you go out, have lunch or whatever, right? So in that era, it's going to be like a rented brain of yours, like how your smartphone is for you today. I've been saying this always, right? If I take away the phone from you, you won't be able to operate as much as you do normal time. So it's like your exocortex, it's your additional brain that you have. So if the AI is going to be like that, you want to make sure that you put that in check. You want to make sure that there is some openness, there is some verifiability. There are multiple ways to achieve that. What we do is basically starting with data. We make sure that data is as open as possible and as verified as possible and as unbiased as possible. We use multiple ways of crypto benefits to do that. Like we provide crypto economic benefits for people to contribute across the globe. So naturally it is unbiased. And then we have it on chain, have the data stored on chain. So it's naturally open and verifiable. So I think those are ways that we can bring in open and verifiability to AI. Will AI grow without blockchain? Yes. But is blockchain something good to have for that? Definitely yes as well. So wherever we need open and verifiability, I guess blockchain can be used there, and this is one of those use cases.
Lee, when you look at startups that come to you for funding, what do you see as kind of the biggest hole that you're looking to plug there? What's not working in the infrastructure? What are the pieces that you're looking for that will help blockchain-oriented startups and AI come together and solve problems?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So as a VC, I think most obviously we're looking for is top quality management team. I think when you're making a bet on a project, you're really making a bet on people at the project team and who's leading the project. So oftentimes we'll see a lot of different teams trying to go after trying to solve the same problem. And the differentiation is if you have a unfair advantage over the other team. And that unfair advantage could be the quality of the management team, it could be the technology, it could be a variety of different factors. But one analogy I want to make is, we see early stage VC as accessing different projects and different talents. Centralized exchange is almost like democratizing the access point for the users to access the tokenized version of projects, so the tokenizations. And at Bitmart, one great thing we like to say is we're very early in terms of getting different tokens listed. And so the users are able to access at a very early stage different tokens that they might not have access to at other exchanges, for example. So it's about democratizing the access point to these projects and these tokens.
All right. So I started, writing about this stuff about 6 years ago. We started covering it. And I feel a little bit like a millennial cult or a cargo cult. We keep waiting for it to happen, but it hasn't happened. Ed Roman said earlier on a panel, the problem with crypto is it's solving it's a solution in search of a problem. The mainstream has certainly not arrived yet. For all intents and purposes, when you talk to most people about crypto, it's a casino, if you're smart enough to figure out how to do it. Whereas with AI, starting about a year ago, when OpenAI suddenly became the thing that was on everybody's lips, it worked out of the box. And not only did it work out of the box, but it gets better every month, more usable. Like, my wife can almost do it now, although she won't. She hates it because she's a writer and she thinks it's going to take her job, and she's probably right. By putting AI with crypto, don't we overcomplicate it? Don't we take something that works perfectly well? I mean, I understand theoretically that it solves problems of censorship and access, and it solves problems of people manipulating things, the unseen hand and so forth. But to get there, we still haven't solved the easiest, you talk about access points, it's still really hard to access. So tell me why you believe that grafting this fairly complicated thing onto this thing that's already easy enough for most people to use is going to work.
Probably I would like to take on the builder side, because if you take a look at people who are building on the AI space, one of the biggest problem they have is bootstrapping. Like, decentralized compute solve that, right? You can now go ahead and rent a GPU in Akash network and start deploying your open source model and start experimenting with it. What if you could try to bring that in every aspect of AI? What if you can bring in a concept around where bootstrapping of any model could be easier, like what Sentient and all these folks are doing? What if we can bootstrap data, what we are trying to do? So I think every component of AI could be bootstrapped using Web3. That is the biggest aspect, I believe, that we can bring into the AI space, helping the builders bootstrap. On the consumer side, I think it's still a long wait because we are still working towards letting the end user adopt to getting onto crypto rails. I think that's going to take a longer time, but I think it's going to be much more helpful for the builders to use Web3 incentives and stuff like that.
So your thesis is basically it'll come in from the enterprise side, not on the consumer-facing side.
Yes, more on builders who don't want to depend on enterprises' need for GPUs and stuff like that. So yes, more on the builder side. On the consumers, I'm still bearish on that. I'm not sure. It might take a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Islam, you have anything to add to that?
Yes. So I totally agree with you, Josh, that crypto in general, from the perspective of someone outside of the crypto space, can be seen as a solution looking for a problem or a very complicated, nebulous thing that functions seemingly like a casino. So there's a lot of truth to that. I think what I would add here is that people outside of the crypto space, they don't necessarily need to know and understand crypto in order to use it. So the future that I would like to see is that people would be using, crypto services without them even realizing that it's a crypto service. And a lot of banks have been doing this within their infrastructure, implementing crypto protocols in order to transfer funds without the user having the knowledge of that. When it comes to something like AI specifically, I think the challenges with crypto, they would be largely dealt with developers. So there would be the challenge of, let's say, tokenization. But on the other hand, it can solve some other challenges for them. So maybe to build on the transcription example that I mentioned before. So typically the way people would build software services today, you would build this transcription service, and then you would be, as a developer, you would be maintaining this infrastructure. So You would sign up to my service, you would give me your data, your meeting recording, and then I would transcribe it for you, and maybe I would share the summary back. You can imagine another model, and here maybe I'll use the internet computer specifically since that's what I'm most familiar with. In this case, you can build a transcription service, and instead of maintaining the infrastructure for all your users can, with the click of a button, this wouldn't be something that's complicated at all, you would actually create your own instance of the transcription service that you control. Maybe I would be the developer of the model, and I would get compensated for you creating an instance of that service, but you would use it just like a regular transcription service. The difference is that the data would stay within your instance. I wouldn't have to have access to it in order for you to leverage the work that I had done. And on the flip side, I don't have to maintain any infrastructure, because then I could be relying on the infrastructure of something like the internet computer, a decentralized open source infrastructure, so that in a way it can simplify the experience while giving ownership and control for users.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even need to know that it's crypto at all.
And I'm going to repeat our conversation at lunch. When you described that to me, I thought, oh, this is just like Apple Intelligence, which just arrived on my iPhone yesterday, right? And it's very underwhelming right now, but we can assume that over the course of the next few years, they'll catch up. It's based on OpenAI, and one of the selling points is Apple privacy, right? They're saying, you've got an AI cloud, your personal AI cloud. What you say to your iPhone stays with your iPhone. It's like Las Vegas. Everything stays within your little AI bubble. And you can totally see how, as you're training this model on you, at some point we'll get, you know, a robot a la Sunny. I don't know if you've seen that on Netflix, but you've got your Apple robot, and you'll be able to transport your cloud into that robot, and the moment it's unboxed, it knows you. And Apple sells itself on trust me, right? Trust me. So it's doing all of that, the full stack, end to end, without any blockchain. And it's very, very, very usable and very compelling as something that's that usable. Why would I choose something that's much more complicated and has many more moving parts over that proprietary, very simple, user-friendly experience?
Yes, and to that end, I definitely cannot dispute how usable Apple products would be. I think it really boils down to two things. There's the trust aspect, and then there is the ownership aspect. As long as you trust Apple, which I think is a very valid and fair thing to trust. So if you choose to trust Apple, then that is a very viable thing to use. It tends to be, maybe historically speaking, Apple has a walled garden policy, so I wouldn't expect in Apple's particular case that it would be easy, let's say 5 to 10 years from now, if you want to migrate your data somewhere else, or even just easily download it or export it. I doubt that this would be possible to do. I think the alternative there can be more appealing in the sense that if you have a decentralized infrastructure where you are controlling the data that you're storing, there you can actually verify that this infrastructure is giving you the privacy guarantees that you're looking for, and at the same time there is no vendor lock-in. And the AI landscape in particular is changing so fast. Who knows what the landscape is going to be in 5, 10 years. Maybe you trust Apple today, would you want to trust them 10 years from now? And who knows what AI models are going to look like then as well.
Right, that's a really great point, because even though I might trust Tim Cook right now, he's not going to be the CEO forever, and Apple isn't going to be the most important consumer-facing company in the world forever. It'll be challenged, and it's a public company, and we know what happens when public companies have trouble. They start to sell off everything, and even the things that they might have stood for at one point.
So I just want to add one point to that. I think it's also a generational mindset. So the current generation is more democratic, like as in like they want internet to be much more democratic. So the previous generation was more convenience than privacy. So if you probably take the data and have a better feed for them, they're fine with it. And the current generation is much more, democratic, as I told you, like much more practical. They want privacy. They have concerns over privacy much better than convenience. So I guess it's just a mindset. We already saw most of the enterprises out there and some of the startups as well don't want to use a closed source like OpenAI's current model, they would go for an alternative options like Llama and all that, which is open source, even though they're not truly open source, right? They don't open the weights and stuff like that. So I guess it's just the mindset. If we have a mindset towards privacy, and that's what I'm seeing in the current market right now, this will change. We would not be just trusting the company, we would trust the code much more than the company.
Right, that's what we've heard. I mean, that's always been the compelling selling point of crypto. But on the other hand, there's a school of thought that says privacy is overrated. I mean, I remember Reid Hoffman, who started LinkedIn, he used to say that privacy was an old man's concern, that actually most people don't really care about it. Of course, they care about it if they've committed a crime or something, but most people don't care that much about privacy. And that could be a particularly US-centric point of view. I'm not entirely sure.
Sure, but
what do you think?
What if you start using a ChatGPT like model where you almost tell it every day of your life, like you're actually talking about your personal stuff, you're talking about your work. It's like your own, personal assistant, which has no boundaries. You tell him everything. I mean, you tell it everything. So in that case, your privacy would be a concern, because I did this experiment, right? You could go ahead and do a prompt on ChatGPT where you can say, of all my conversations with you, let me know about what you think about myself, Ram. And it gives out almost every other detail about you, like your personal life, your work, the stories that it told you and stuff. And it's quite scary because it knows everything about you now. Mm-hmm. So over there, privacy is a concern. I think it's very use case driven. We don't let people access our emails, but we could let them access our news feeds. That's fine because it's not so private. So if ChatGPT is going to be your everyday assistant, privacy would be a concern there. So it's very use case driven is what I think.
Yeah, I could see that, but Google, my company uses Google for everything, and Google looks at my email. I have no doubt that it knows everything that's in there. So we've already given that up, right?
Sure, I don't use Google. So as I told you, it's about individual person, and I think it's a mindset. When you start using something and it's going to create an impact in your life, then you might change your mind. So that's what
absolutely. I guess I also just think in terms of the raft of consumer products that are out there. We have Firefox and we have Brave, which protect your privacy, and Opera, but everybody still uses Chrome, and they still use Safari because it's convenient, right? And people always seem to choose convenience over more highfalutin ideas. Lee, I feel like I'm icing you out here. What do you think about all this?
So I actually just got back from Saudi Arabia for Investor Summit, and I want to talk about kind of the investor view on all of this.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned about shifting away from the US-centric, because we're very focused on kind of under the US regulatory regime. If you shift kind of zoom out a little bit, internationally, people are looking at investing into this, but they're not really looking at the convergence of the two yet. So AI, there's plenty of tech companies that's so-called proclaimed AI, but what are the problem they're actually solving for? It's more of a making the bet in the for AI, but using the applications at different layers. So not just consumer applications, but also enterprise applications. And the same thing with crypto, crypto/blockchain. The strategy that a lot of the investors are thinking internationally is just getting exposure. They're not even delving into the details of merging the two or how it impacts each other. It's just getting exposure into blockchain and then getting exposure into AI. And a lot of time, it could be shifting away from the consumer application side of things into enterprise and B2B, which is, again, replacing human resources, replacing human contact at the end of the day. So, yeah, that's kind of a little bit international perspective.
Okay. So can we get like sort of existential here? I mean, when people talk about artificial intelligence, the main conversation around the dinner table is the risk, right? It's died down a little bit, but a few months ago, everyone was talking about kind of these Terminator scenarios where machine is going to reach super intelligence and then it'll be curtains for humanity. I don't know that I believe that anymore because you can always unplug a computer, or at least you think you can, and that seems to be what do they call it, the kill switch seems to be the ultimate solution. I do think that the near-term problem is going to be enormous disruption in the workplace. You know, you mentioned the various enterprise interests. We're about to publish a story about recruiters. A lot of companies are now using AI to do recruiting interviews and so forth. Is there any world in which this overlap between crypto, between Web3 technologies and artificial intelligence will help stave that off or mitigate the possibility that everyone is going to lose their job?
I could take that. So I was having this conversation with someone where they're talking about how was the era when people moved from riding on horses to actually motor vehicles, right? I believe 80% of the workforce who are like horsemen, taking care of horses and feeding them and all of these guys lost jobs, right? I think millions of people probably lost jobs when people moved from horses to like motorcycles. But what happened, right? People started commuting. US was built on roads that connected cities. I could come here from SF to Palo Alto in about 45 minutes because I used a car. So I think technology will definitely make people lose jobs, but it'll also create a lot of new jobs. We've seen that happen in the industrial era. We've seen that happen during the internet era. We've seen that happen during the mobile era. I think it's going to be the same for AI as well. People are going to lose jobs, but we are humans. We'll figure out ways to make more jobs as well. So I don't think it's going to be a great impact. It's going to be a very short-term impact, but then we will definitely recover from that.
Anyone else want to take a swipe at that?
Yeah, it's a very loaded topic. I don't know where to start, really.
Well,
Yeah,
we have 7 minutes and 38 seconds, so.
Yes. So I totally hear Ram's point about the previous evolutions that we've been through technologically and how, yes, it has displaced a lot of people's jobs and then created new jobs. My own personal opinion, I'm not as optimistic when it comes to AI specifically. I think now we're in a good sweet spot where AI is an enabler to people's jobs. So it can really take away a lot of the mundane aspects of a job. Let's say in writing, it can help with polishing up and so on.
Yep.
But it's really hard to predict where this is going to go in a few years from now. And I do see a future where it can potentially replace a lot of jobs, including a lot of creative jobs, maybe the creative jobs more so than anything else. Yeah, so I think that's definitely a risk, which I think goes back to the previous point that we talked about. I think it's more than just privacy when it comes to thinking about how we want to approach AI in terms of the platform or who owns it or monopolizing it, because it also has substantial ramifications to the economy and job placements. So that's why we need to be especially careful, I think, with this technology. And people need to be, not just people, but also governments, they need to be much more aware about the implications, because it's not just about accessing my email. It's
Right.
really about much, much further economic ramifications that they would need to put into account. And if this was only dictated by 3 or 4 companies, as is the case, let's say, in social networking or search engines or practically on the other Web2 services today, I think that's maybe too much power to be given to these companies. And
Sure, but so then how would something like the World Computer mitigate this? I mean, how would we be able to build something, a public infrastructure, that protects us? I mean, it's kind of like almost anti-progress in some ways.
yes, so there has been a number of, so you were mentioning, Josh, how people always value convenience. I do think that's true, but convenience hasn't always been something that, let's say, the private sector would be pushing. So if you look at, say, the internet in the early 90s, it was pretty much a walled garden. You had AOL, you had this information superhighway, and then eventually it was really the innovation that was brought up by this open internet that really made it more easier and more convenient and more compelling to use. And I think we can actually strive for a similar future with something like AI. Now, if you're an entrepreneur and you are fully dependent on, let's say, OpenAI, that is a platform risk, very much like Zynga when it was dependent on Facebook. And to that end, I think it wouldn't just be one service or one solution to the problem. So you have, let's say, people like Axaflops building GPU marketplaces. You have people like us on the internet computer where you can deploy services. And I think these together potentially can create an ecosystem where entrepreneurs can build products without having to worry about platform risk. And removing that risk for entrepreneurs could eventually lead to better products that people would want to use, with the additional bonus that it has better privacy guarantees and potentially addresses the problem of AI as a monster in the future as well.
I definitely love the idea of decentralizing the risk. On the other hand, part of decentralization means that the whole could come from any one of the parts. And so it makes it harder to use the kill switch if the superintelligence is decentralized, right? But I see the point, and I think it's a pretty interesting one. Lee, I wanted to ask you about something in the few minutes we have left. We've written a lot about this at Decrypt. This is the story. I don't know if everyone in this room is aware of this, but there is a Twitter account, an X account called Terminal of Truths. Are you all familiar with this? It's an AI agent that somebody set up to run a Twitter account as sort of a public experiment. And it was like all a lot of fun and games for a while. And then the agent started to want money. It started to want to kind of take control of its own life, and it wanted to figure out a way that it could monetize itself for its future development. And Mark Andreessen, the venture capitalist, and Gadfly from Palo Alto, he gave it a $50,000 grant to kind of help it along its pilgrim's progress. And the next thing you know is Terminal Truths started tweeting about a coin that some supplicant had launched, a meme coin, a Solana coin called GOAT. And suddenly everybody started to buy the GOAT coin, which now has a market cap of $650 million the last time I checked. And the bot itself has about $1.8 million in its wallet. So I'm kind of curious what the panelists think about AI agents connected to wallets, connected to crypto. Are we about to start seeing a lot more AI meme coins? Where does that end up? And I'm going to start with you, Lee, since you've got all of those coins on your platform.
Actually, I did check. We do have GOAT listed on Bitmart, and I think we've had it for a few weeks now. So the whole thing about meme tokens, there's no intrinsic value, but there's a community around it, and there's people interested in buying it and shilling it and pump it up, and then unfortunately rug pull it. And I think that's just the nature of the gambling mentality, right? People, on one part, nothing's classified as security, so you might as well, play the meme token. And in 2021, we've had all kind of zoo tokens. I call them like dog coins. And you have influencers, celebrities, Elon Musk, basically talking about it. And now we just have an AI agent talking about it. And I think the market cap went up to like 800 million, almost entering into the Three Commas Club. And it's for fun, it's for kicks. I think there's probably gonna be more of it coming up. So whatever human are doing with meme tokens, I think AI agent could very well do it, and do it kind of under the anonymity of who's behind the AI agent. But just like meme token, they're intrinsically valueless. So
Yeah, no, I totally get the meme coin thing, but my interest is you've got a piece of silicon that owns $1.8 million worth, $1.8 million worth of dollars. What happens when autonomous agents, when artificial agents have money? They could buy companies. They could run that 1.8, once they get smarter, they can run that 1.8 million up into, whatever, right?
Maybe there's also the lack of judgment. I think behind the agent, there's like dictation on here, go do this, but maybe it needs to be trained to have a sense of judgment to actually run companies instead of just being a meme token wallet.
Yeah.
So.
Do either of you others?
I think we should just see them as another race of species. Like, I'm very optimistic over AI, so I think that's how you should see that. And you try to compete with them. It's just that they have 100x much more power than you. So
It certainly makes sense that bots would use digital currency. So
that's the first way to get into
Yeah.
using it. It's digital. It's another digital species, so it needs digital token.
Islam, you have anything to add?
I think it's super exciting, actually. I was very, very happy
You
to
want
hear
to see
about
more
that.
bots with money walking around?
I think I'm just excited about the possibilities. I think just having AI agents being able to control assets, I don't know exactly where this is going to go. Maybe I'm less worried about that specifically versus other parts of AI from a risk perspective.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just meme coins today, but maybe it can really help, make parts of the company's bureaucracy substantially more efficient if people or agents can transact in a way that's very, very efficient and very secure and so forth.
On that optimistic note, we're going to end it. We're going to get Ram out of here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you, Josh.